Ooh. It's the morning word, Matthew. It's o'clock, April 4th. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King died today. It's April 4th. Read the Bible through in the year. April 4th, Matthew 26, chapter 26, verse 26 to 46. As they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread and asked God's blessing on it. Then he broke it into pieces and gave it to the disciples, saying, "Take it and eat it, for this is my body." And he took a cup of wine and gave it thanks to God for it. He gave it to them, and they said, and said, "Each of you who drink from it, for this is my blood, which seals the covenant between God and his disciples. It is poured out to forgive the sins of many." Mark my words, I will not drink wine again until the day I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Then they sang a hymn and went out to the Mount of Olives. Jesus predicts Peter's denial. "Tonight all of you will desert me," Jesus told them. "For the scriptures say, God will strike the shepherd and the sheep of the flock will scatter. But after I've been raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee and meet you there." Peter declared, "Even if everyone else deserts you, I never will." "Peter," Jesus replied, "the truth is, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. "No," Peter insisted, "not even if I have to die with you. I will never deny you." And all the other disciples vowed the same. Jesus prays at Gethsemane. Then Jesus brought to them an olive grove called Gethsemane. Gethsemane. And he said, "Sit here while I go ahead to pray." He took Peter and Zebedee's 2 sons, John and James, and began to feel with anguish and deep distress. He told them, "My soul is crushed with grief to the point of my death. Stay here and watch with me." He went a little further and fell face down on the ground praying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken away from me. Yet I want your will, not mine." Then he returned to the disciples and found them asleep. He said to Peter, "Couldn't you stay awake and watch me even 1 hour? Keep alert and pray, otherwise temptation will overpower you. For though the spirit is willing and the body is weak." Again he left them and prayed, "My Father, if this cup cannot be taken away until I drink it, your will be done." He returned to them again and found them sleeping, for they just couldn't keep their eyes open. So he went back to pray a 3rd time, saying the same things again. Then he still came to the disciples and said, "Still sleeping? Still resting? Look, the time has come. I, the Son of Man, am betrayed into the hands of sinners. Up, let's be going. Let's see, my betrayer is here." Matthew 26, chapter 26, verse 26 to 46. The roof is getting redone. Deuteronomy 1 and 2. Deuteronomy 1 and 2. Right, you hear all that noise in the background. The command to leave Sinai. This book records the words that Moses spoke to all the people of Israel while they were in the wilderness east of the Jordan River. They were camped in the Jordan Valley near Suph, between Paran on one side and Tophel, Laban, Hazeroth, and Dizahab on the other side. Normally it takes only 11 days to travel to Mount Sinai to Kadesh, but going the way of Mount Seir. But 40 years after the Israelites left Mount Sinai on the day in midwinter, Moses gave these speeches to the Israelites, telling them everything the Lord had commanded him to say. This was after he had defeated King Sihon of the Amorites, who had ruled in Heshbon, and King Og of Bashan, who had ruled in Asheroth and Edrei. So Moses addressed the people of Israel while they were in the land of Moab, east of the Jordan River. He began to explain the law as follows. When we were at Mount Sinai, our Lord, our God, said to us, "You have stayed at this mountain long enough. It is time to break camp and move on. Go to the hill country of the Amorites and to all the neighboring regions of the valley, the Jordan Valley, the hill country, the western foothills, the Negev, and the coastal plains. Go to the land of the Canaanites and to Lebanon, and all the way to the great Euphrates River. I am giving all this land to you. Go in and occupy it. For it is the land the Lord swore to give to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all their descendants." Moses appoints leaders from each tribe. At the time, I told you, "You are too great a burden for me to carry all for myself. The Lord your God has made you as numerous as the stars. And may the Lord, the God of your ancestors, multiply you and 1,000 times more and bless you as he promised. But how can I settle all your quarrels and problems by myself? Choose men from each tribe who have wisdom, understanding, and a good reputation, and I will appoint them as your leaders." You agreed that my pain was so good. So I took the wise and respected men you had selected from your tribes and appointed them to serve as judges and officials over you. Some were responsible for 1,000 people, some for 100, some for 50, some for 10. I instructed the judges, "You must be perfectly fair at all times, not only to fellow Israelites living among you when you make decisions. Never fail those who are rich. Be fair to the lowly and great alike. Don't be afraid of how they react, for you are judging in the place of God. Bring me any cases that are too difficult for you. I will handle them." And at that time, I gave you instructions about everything you were to do. Scouts explored the land. Then, just as our Lord, our God, directed us, when we left Mount Sinai and traveled through the great and terrifying wilderness, which you saw yourselves, and headed toward the hill countries of the Amorites. When we arrived at Kadesh Barnea, I said to you, "You have now reached the land that the Lord, our God, has given us. Look, he has placed it in front of you. Go and occupy it as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, has promised you. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged." But you responded, "First, let's send out scouts to explore the land for us. This will advise us on the best route to take and decide which towns we should capture." This seemed like a good idea to me, so I chose 12 scouts, one from each of your tribes. They crossed into the hills and came to the valley of Eshcol and explored it. They picked some of its fruits and brought it back to us, and they reported that the land the Lord our God had given us was indeed good land. Israel's rebels against the Lord. But as you rebelled against the command of the Lord your God and refused to go in, you murmured and complained in your tents and said, the Lord must hate us, bringing us here from Egypt to be slaughtered by these Amorites. How can we go in? Our scouts have been demoralized. Our scouts have demoralized us with their report. They said that the people of the land are taller and more powerful than we are, and that the walls of their towns rise high in the sky. They have even seen giants there, the descendants of Anak. But I said to you, don't be afraid. The Lord your God is going before you. He will fight for you, just as you saw him do in Egypt. And you saw how the Lord, the God, cared for you, and again here in the wilderness, just as the father cares for his child. Now he has brought you to this place. But even after all he did, you refused to trust the Lord your God, who goes before you looking for the best places to camp, guiding you by a pillar of fire at night and a pillar of cloud by day. When the Lord heard your complaining, he became very angry. So he solemnly swore, not one of you from this entire wicked generation will live to see the land where I swore to give your ancestors, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh. He will see the land because he has followed the Lord's Lord completely. I will give him and his descendants some of the land he walked over during his scouting mission. And the Lord was also very angry with me because of you. He said to me, you will never enter the promised land. Instead, your assistant Joshua, son of Nun, will lead the people into the land. Encourage him as he prepares to enter it. I will give the land to your innocent children. You were afraid they would be captured, but they were the ones who occupied it. As for you, turn around now and go back through the wilderness and toward the Red Sea. Then you confess, we have sinned against the Lord, and we will go into the land and fight for it, as the Lord, our God has told us to. So your men strapped on their weapons, thinking it would be easy to conquer the hill country. But the Lord said to me, tell them not to attack it, for I will not go with them. If they do, they will be crushed by their enemies. This is what I told you, but you would not listen. Instead, you again rebelled against the Lord's command and arrogantly went into the hill to fight. But the Amorites who lived there came out against you like a swarm of bees. They chased and battered you all the way from Seir to Hormah. Then you returned and wept before the Lord, but he refused to listen. So you stayed there at Kadesh for a long time. Remembering Israel's wanderings. Then we turned around and set out across the wilderness toward the Red Sea, just as the Lord had instructed me. And we wandered along Mount Seir for a long time. Then at last, the Lord said, you have been wandering around this hill country long enough. Turn northward. Give these orders to the people. You will be passing through the country belonging to your relatives, the Edomites, the descendants of Esau who live in Seir. The Edomites will feel threatened, so be careful. Don't bother them, for I have given them all the hill country around Mount Seir as their property, and I will not give you any of their land. Pay them for whatever food and water you use. The Lord your God has blessed everything you have done and watched your every step throughout this great wilderness. During these 40 years, the Lord your God has been with you and provided for your every need, so you lack nothing. So we went past our relatives, the descendants of Esau, who lived in Seir, and avoided the road through the Arban Valley that comes up through Elath and Elzion and Gilbert. Then we traveled north along the desert route through Moab. The Lord warned us, do not bother the Moabites, the descendants of Lot, or start a war with them. I have given them Ar as their property, and I will not give you any of their land. A numerous and powerful race of giants called the Emets had once lived there in the area of Ar. They were as tall as the Akanites and another race of giants. Both the Emites and the Akanites were often referred to as Raphaites, but the Moabs called them Emets. In the earlier times, Horites had lived at Mount Seir, but they were driven out and displaced by the descendants of Esau. In a similar way, the people of Canaan were driven from the land that the Lord had assigned to Israel. Moses continued, then the Lord told us to cross Zered Brook, and we did. So 38 years passed from the time we finally arrived at Kadesh Barnea until we finally crossed the Zered Brook. For the Lord had vowed that this could not happen until all the men were old enough to fight. All the men old enough to fight in the battle had died in the wilderness. The Lord had lifted his hand against them, and all of them had finally died. When all the men of fighting age had died, the Lord said to me, today you will cross the border of Mount Ar and enter the land of Ammon, but not bother the Ammonites, the descendants of Lot, or start war with them. I have given the land of Ammon to them as their property, and I will not give you any of their land. That area too was once considered the land of the Rephaites, though the Ammonites referred to them as the Zamzumanites. They were a numerous and powerful race, as tall as the Akanites, but the Lord destroyed them so the Ammonites could occupy their land. He has simply helped the descendants of Esau at Mount Seir, for he destroyed the Horites so they could settle there in their place. The descendants of Esau lived there to this day. A similar thing happened when the Kapharites from Crete invaded and destroyed the Abiites, who lived in the villages in the area of Gaza. Moses continued, then the Lord said, now cross the Arnon Gorge. Look, I will help you defeat Sihon and the Amorite king of the Heshbon, and will give you his land. Attack him and begin to occupy the land. Beginning of the day, I will make all the people throughout the earth terrified of you. When they hear reports about you, they will tremble with dread and fear. Victory over Sihon and Heshbon. Then from the wilderness of Kedmoth, I sent ambassadors to King Sihon of Heshbon with this proposal of peace. Let us pass through your land, and we will stay on the main road, and we will not turn off into the fields on either side. We will pay for every bite of food we eat and all the water we drink. All we want is permission to pass through your land. The descendants of Esau and Mount Seir allowed us to go through their country, and so did the Moabites who live in Ar. Let us pass through the country. Let us pass until we cross the Jordan into the land our God. The land the Lord our God has given us. But King Sihon refused to allow you to pass through, because the Lord your God made Sihon stubborn and defeated, so he could help you defeat them, and now, as he has done now. Then the Lord said to me, look, I have begun to hand King Sihon and his land over to you. Begin now to conquer and occupy his land. Then King Sihon declared war on us and mobilized his forces at Jahaz. But the Lord our God handed him over to us. We crushed him, his sons, and all his people. We conquered all his towns and completely destroyed everyone, men, women, and children. Not a single person was spared. We took all the livestock as plunder for ourselves, along with anything of value from the towns we ransacked. The Lord our God helped us conquer Aria on the edge of the Arnon Gorge, the town in the gorge, and the whole area as far as Gilead. No town had walls too strong for us. However, we stayed away from the Ammonites along the Jabbok River and the towns in the hill countries, all the places the Lord our God had commanded us to leave alone. That's Deuteronomy 1 and 2. And now we're going to finish up in Job chapter 4. Job chapter 4. Job chapter 4. Eliphaz first responds to Job. Then Eliphaz, the Temanite, replied to Job, "Will you be patient and let me say a word? For who could keep from speaking out? In the past, you have encouraged many a troubled soul to trust in God. You have supported those who were weak. Your words have strengthened the fallen. You steadied those who wavered. But now, when trouble strikes you, you faint and are broken. Does your reverence for God give you no confidence? Shouldn't you believe that God will care for those who are upright? Stop, think. Doesn't an innocent person perish? When has the upright person been destroyed? My experience shows that those who plant trouble and cultivate evil will harvest the same. They perish by a breath from God. They vanish in the blast of his anger. Though they are fierce young lions, they will all be broken and destroyed. The fierce lion will starve, and the cubs of the lioness will be scattered. This truth was given me in secret, as though a whisper in my ear. It came in a vision at night as others slept. Fear gripped me. I trembled and shook with terror. A spirit swept past my face. Its wind sent shivers up my spine. It stopped but wouldn't see its shape. There was a form before my eyes, and a hushed voice said, "Can a mortal be just and upright before God? Can a person be pure before the Creator? If God cannot trust his own angels and has charged some of them with folly, how much less will he trust those he made of clay? Their foundation is dust, and they are crushed easily as moss. They are alive in the morning, but in the evening they are dead, gone forever without a trace. Their tents collapse, they die in ignorance." Job 4. I stay blessed till tomorrow. It's reading.